I want to learn more about your origin story and your life in Venezuela, because you essentially understood firsthand what it means when money dies. So tell us where you come from and how you got to co-found Ledn.
Great question. So I was born and raised in Venezuela. I grew up in Venezuela in the late 80s and 90s. And it was a really beautiful place to grow up. Venezuela has the issue that many commodity markets or economies have, which is the country economy dances to the beat of the underlying commodity.
And in this case, this is oil?
This is oil, correct. And so towards the late 90s, around the 90s, there was a boom-bust cycles in oil, and this created a lot of frustration in the Venezuelan society. And that led to one rogue military guy trying to overthrow the government. He tried once, failed, tried the second time, failed. And when he was about to try the third time, the incumbent president gave him a presidential pardon so that he could run in the polls. You know who that person was? Hugo Chavez.
Oh, wow.
So Hugo Chavez gets a presidential pardon in 1998. And the first thing he does is gets on a plane, goes to Cuba, got his training, comes back with a middle-of-the-road campaign. Kumbaya, let's all be happy. Businesses, I get it. People, I get it. We're going to come together. Anyway, wins the election and rewrites the Constitution, changes the name of the country, changes the flag, changes the coat of arms, changes the time zone, starts basically ravaging our Constitution. And my family and many others decided that this was going to be a one-term guy. We were going to go spend a few years in Florida while this blew over. And I remember when I got to Florida, I met a bunch of Cubans, and I told them where we were coming from and what was happening in Venezuela. And they gave me this look, and they hugged me, and they said, "You better get comfortable here, man.
Yeah.
I don't think you know what just happened to your country." And we would joke. And we're like, no, it's not going to happen to us.
This is the communist experiment that's failed all over, and people don't listen.
We're like, us? No, we have oil. We're mainland. Anyway, so as he starts doing this, Chavez starts expropriating businesses on national television, buildings, takes over the state oil company, replaces all the professionals with his friends. And he basically starts ripping apart the economy, removes the licenses from any media outlet, radio, TV that oppose him. It's the playbook. It's the playbook.
And prints a bunch of money, right? To the point that you guys are like holding wheelbarrows of Bolivar, and inflation must have been what, triple digits?
Yeah, and so when Chavez was around, oil markets were still okay. And so there was like a bit of an illusion in Venezuela of wealth, because he was ravaging the economy, but oil prices were ripping. So it created this cognitive dissonance where people said, communism is amazing, right? Like, look at all these great things that I'm getting now. He started subsidizing the price of prime beef. He started subsidizing the price of imported liquor. So Venezuela was paradise to a lot of people because everything was so cheap.
Wow.
And so meanwhile, all of us that understood what was happening were just pulling our hair and screaming to the void, but nobody was listening.
Yeah.
And then Chavez dies of cancer in 2013. This triggered the election that all of us thought was going to get the country back. So we all fly back. And that was the first election that the Chavista regime basically stole, like knowingly that they didn't win. They still went out and they said, no, we did win. And I remember going to the protests because there were protests afterwards. And that was the first time I had ever been to a protest where I had heard and seen the government shoot real bullets back at us. And I saw people drop. I saw guys I knew drop. And it was that night, my mom and my now wife pulled me aside at home, and basically there was like an intervention. Like, you have to leave.
You have to leave, yeah.
And so I left. And but my youngest brother was still there, and he didn't want to leave. And he was just finishing university, and he really wanted to start a business in Venezuela. And I come from an entrepreneurial family. My dad supported all of us to take a crack at the bat when he came out of school. And so my youngest brother keeps pitching them ideas. And my dad says, no, leave. I want you to leave. And he goes, Dad, no, I'm doing this whether you support me or not. And if you don't support me, I'm leaving the house. I'm selling my car. And so my dad, gets this, flips me the pitch, which is my brother's proposing to buy Bitcoin miners.
Wow, really?
And, yeah, so this is late 2014. And so this is the first time I ever read the white paper. And this is the first time I ever see a link to Bitmain.
So your brother already knew about Bitcoin. Your brother found it.
My youngest brother found it.
That's incredible.
And so he sends me the white paper. Venezuela hydroelectricity was heavily subsidized. So the main inputs were subsidized outside of the chips.
Yeah.
And you could sell the Bitcoin for $4 outside of the country. So out of everything else that he had pitched, I was like, Dad, this doesn't seem too bad. So my brother buys the Bitcoin miners. And then he starts mining Bitcoin. And keep in mind, Venezuela had these horrible capital controls at the time.
I bet.
So I fly down 6 months after. All of my friends are liquidating their assets, leaving, trying to figure out where they can get a job. Houses for sale, businesses closed, depressed. And along comes my brother with a smile. And he goes, I heard your friends are leaving. Are any of them leaving any industrial sites you think they're willing to rent? Because I need more space. And I look at him and I go, the hell do you mean you need more space? Like the country's falling apart. It's like, no. Like I need more space for my mines.
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go check out your mines. And I went to check out the mines, and he had almost double the machines originally that were supposed to be there. So I go to my dad and I was like, how did he get double the machines? Did you give him more money? He's like, no, he paid me back.
Because the Bitcoin went up?
Because he was mining with free energy.
Yeah.
And
where did he even supply? Were they allowing those to be imported?
The ASICs, yes. Because Venezuela had so much things coming in from China. Back then, there was nobody was aware of what was checking. It was computers. It was just like bringing computers.
That's incredible.
And so, he starts doing very, very well. And, now that we have found a way of sheltering our bolívares from inflation without even needing the dollar, it was groundbreaking. Wow. And so our friends were very curious. They're like, can I go see what you're doing? Our family, so our cousins started mining, uncles, aunts, my friends. Back then you could still use GPU rigs because you could connect them to NiceHash and get Bitcoin for that. So people were repurposing old computers.
Amazing.
And so it was like the golden age of Venezuelan mining was 2015 to 2017.
Wow. And
then mining, when mining, I learned, a couple of interesting things. One is once you get a taste of Bitcoin revenue, oh boy, you don't want to sell that thing, right? But you keep getting the bills. And so immediately I said, why am I selling the thing that's appreciating? I would rather use it as collateral and meet my expenses and keep the upside. And I had already done really well shorting the Bolivar with the dollar. So this concept of borrowing weak and holding hard asset felt natural.
What a great story.
And so I at the time I was like, no one in Venezuela is ever going to do this. But then I started building my first mine in Canada, thanks to Francis Pulio, because we were getting basically kicked out of Venezuela, or it was getting very difficult to. Yeah. And I'll get to that story later. But my brother's facility eventually got raided by the regime, and they were extorting him.
That's horrible.
Yeah, but basically that led to him having to escape the country overnight. Being able to take basically only his 2 kids, his wife, his passports, and his Bitcoin.
But he could flee with his Bitcoin. That's so critical.
But that was, and it's not even just fleeing, even being in the mindset that you can make that decision. Because he had to leave his house behind. He had to leave his business behind. Yeah. His cash balances at the bank were worthless. Yep. Every other asset he had in that situation, he would have lost everything. Zero.
Exactly.
Thank God he had enough Bitcoin of a Bitcoin cushion to get his family out and basically support them while he rebuilt.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so he did that. And while I was building the mine in Canada, I basically, we got tired of selling our Bitcoin, and Adam and I just said, no, let's solve this problem. Let's do Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan, and let's do it the Bitcoiner way.
I love that.
Like proof of reserves, no token, no other assets, like the way I would want to feel comfortable.
So help me understand something. I mean, the UAE, that's built on oil as well, but they seem to have created, I mean, massive wealth for the entire nation. They're building up skyscrapers. It looks like Vegas times 10 on steroids. Like, why can't Venezuela be like that?
So to answer your question, your comparison is directionally correct. Venezuela has the largest crude oil reserves in the world. The answer is corruption. And it's corruption because there's just the leadership is just completely inefficient and swimming out of their depth. In Venezuela, when Chavez took office, Venezuela produced 3.5 million barrels of oil per day. Today, it produces 680,000. They've decimated the productive apparatus. And the other thing is, the way they spend the money and they just award the money to their friends. I mentioned this to you earlier. There's I think the year is 2015. In the Venezuelan budget, there's a $16 billion gap.
So the money disappeared. They just gave it to their
disappeared.
friends.
And the other thing is, the other thing that cost the Venezuelan government a lot of money was defending their fake exchange rate. Because when the government instills capital controls, they set the exchange rate. And typically, they set this exchange rate artificially low so that their development metrics look great. For example, if I set the exchange rate at 2 bolívares per dollar and my minimum wage is 1,000 bolívares a month, then you have a minimum wage of $500 a month. That's fantastic. But if you're still getting $1,000 a month and the exchange rate is not 2, but 100, you're getting $10 a month. That's poverty line,
right,
like below the poverty line. So you would be triggering all the UN poverty things. So they create these artificially low dollar rates. And in order to make them believable, they have to be able to sell those dollars to somebody at that rate. So they do it to their buddies. And so basically they're selling dollars for pennies to their friends who are then just turning around and reselling it at full pop.
So what's the inflation rate today in Venezuela?
200%.
200% per year.
Yes.
So we complain about our 2 to 3%, which is really, as you mentioned, to your point, they're increasing M2 money supply by like 7, 8, 9% a year. We're lucky compared to other nations.
You're incredibly privileged, and I would argue that the United States and Europe live in a fantasy world. It's completely disconnected from how the rest of the world lives. And anyone listening to this that hasn't experienced what a capital control is, I would argue is like 5% of the world population. The majority of us have experienced capital controls. China, Nigeria, Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, like you go down the list. And what a capital control is you don't have freedom you don't have financial freedom. You're repressed. And that's how most of the world lives. That's why Bitcoin is such a game changer to so many people. That's why stablecoins are such a game changer for so many people. Most people aren't even allowed to hold dollars in their local banks. What did you do before stablecoins? Hoard cash?
This is so true.
This is another point that sometimes goes unnoticed. If you're a person making $50 a month, okay, and you get paid at the end of the month and you try to get your bolívares, get rid of them, and you have to buy cash because there's nothing else you can buy. You don't have a Wells Fargo account or a Bank of America account to get digital dollars into. So your only option is really cash. So say you go out there, you're Maria, you're a nurse, you got paid on Friday and you went and got rid of your bolívares and somebody on the street gave you a fake 50. What happens to Maria?
This is horrible.
Her whole month's work, gone. And I've seen this.
And people prey on each other in these weak moments. It's horrible.
100%, because desperation leads to you making rational decisions.
No wonder this is so personal for you. It's amazing.
Hugely personal for me. Like this is the biggest fight that I want to help win. I don't think there's a bigger fight.